Greetings, Schlockaholics. Welcome back to yet another episode. I'm, of course, joined by my loyal co-hosts, Cody and Septum Sin. How you boys doing today?
Good.
We are going to be covering Cody's selection for this round of films and hopefully devising a better intro for me because I stumble over that one every time. Schlockaholics is a fun word, but it's not the easiest word to say smoothly. It just doesn't ever come out right the first time. But yeah, this was Cody's selection, so we're going to let him, do the intro to it here and kind of tell us a little bit about, why he chose it before we jump into our first experiences with it and first impressions after the trailer that we will showcase like we do every episode. So, Cody, good choice, man. What was your inspiration for this one?
I figured since I've been kind of leaning more towards the recent schlock that I would take a good hit back from the times of old. And unfortunately, I hadn't watched this movie until the last couple of years ago. Of course, I'd heard plenty about it. And then finding out that they were doing a sequel to it, I was like, well, I definitely need to watch the first one before I watch the sequel. And watching it, I obviously wasn't disappointed. And I figured this kind of a movie is right up our alley.
It really, really is. There's so much wrong with it, and so much right with it. It's a curious piece of cinema, of cinematic. I don't know what you call it. It's less of a movie and more of what aliens that are masquerading as humans might make if they were forced to make their idea of a drive-in movie. That's how I've always kind of looked at Manos, and hopefully we'll be able to illustrate in a fun way why there's lots of good stuff to talk about in this movie, lots of bizarre shit, and it was the perfect choice for the Thanksgiving season because, it is kind of old school retro schlock. One of the early ones for us dudes that kind of grew up in the MST3K era, where we were turned on to something that was almost lost media. It was very, very obscure before those guys brought it kind of to the forefront of everyone's, imagination, nightmares, various acid flashbacks. It's, one of those films, man. I'm glad that we're all aware of it. And I'm glad that you brought it up because it is giving me an excuse to finally pull the trigger on the sequel, which hopefully I'll be doing in my next round of orders. So thanks, man. Great choice. We're going to show you guys a modernized trailer for Manos because as I was explaining, most of the trailers for this are as sort of disjointed and weird as the movie itself, or they're like 3 minutes long. So this is a rarity for us. I try to avoid using these modernized trailers. Not that they're not cool. It's just I prefer like an original promo trailer or theatrical trailer if we can get it, just to keep that retro vibe intact. But being as that's not the case today, let's enjoy this modern trailer by HCO, I believe was the name of the user that created and posted it. So thanks, man.
We should have asked for better directions at the last gas station.
Where did this place come from? It wasn't here a few minutes ago. Which way is out of here?
It will be dark soon. There is no way out of here. No matter where we go, he is with us.
What does that mean?
There is nothing to fear, madam. The master likes you. Nothing will happen to you. He likes you.
Get in the bedroom and lock yourself in.
My God, Mike, what kind of place is this?
Debbie? Hear us. Get back in the house, damn it. Hear us.
Oh, my God.
Stand back, Debbie. Stand back.
Mike! Mike!
We shall dispose of you later. Nothing to worry about. It's only your imagination. of primal darkness, thou who dwelleth in the depth of the universe in the black chasms of night, Manos will be done.
Yes.
Why couldn't we have watched that film?
I did. Yeah, but we'll get to that. I don't know if I like how they did my boy Torgo, though, in that trailer. They made him look a little more sinister than he
They sure did.
Rest in peace. It's a shame that dude's not around, which we'll also get to, I'm sure, in the post, discussion information, or it'll just come up. But man, let's get those first impressions in there. Since it's your film, Cody, you get to go first. What was the first time that you saw Manos? What was your impression of it? How did you discover it all that good junk?
Well, before that, I will say that definitely made it look like a totally different movie than it really was. It made it look more like straight up thriller or, I don't know, slasher movie maybe. So, I mean, that was it makes you mad at first because, like Septum said, that's not the movie we watched, but then almost that's the stuff that we fall for so many times. Just the hope that movie is in there.
Though. That's the thing.
It's almost one of those where you wait so long to watch it. I was worried that I would even appreciate it or enjoy it just because you've heard so much about it that maybe it's not going to be the movie you thought it was. And I watched it and it definitely was that and more so. And then watching the various versions they've made with Mystery Science Theater and riff tracks, like that just makes you appreciate it more because then it's just a bunch of guys riffing on a movie that definitely can be riffed on, but doesn't take away from the movie. I think, in my opinion, it just made the movie better.
We could do our own fucking dub to Manos if we wanted to easily.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Look at any of you watching and your friends. Just go out and do it. I mean, it's like the movie's tailor made to have that done to it. So, when about in life did you find this? Like around about how old were you when you
I mean, I think I've heard about it for several years, but didn't finally crack down to watch it until I'm going to say 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, right on. That's cool, man. So you're it's a recent discovery for you, kind of, in a way. Because it is sort of one of those B movies. If you're into B movies, you know about it. Whether you've, it's like literally one of the first ones you're going to find out about because it is in that legendarily so bad it's good category.
Right.
So, everyone kind of, I think, is at least aware Manos exists. I found it just, I think, as a kid, I want to say, through NST3K. I think that was the first time that I'd ever seen it. And I don't even think I watched the whole episode at the time. I feel like I remember just the part where he's in, like, they're forcing their way to stay there, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But I feel like there was some real good riffing going on there. And I was like, man, this movie looks fascinating, But then I didn't actually watch it till several years later when I was probably, I want to say like almost midway to tail end of high school. I bought like a multi-pack that had Manos on it because it was showing up on a bunch of those for a while. And I watched it and just kind of loved it, And then over the years, I grew to appreciate everything that's wrong with it almost more than what's right about it. Because it's such a great example of DIY filmmaking and just saying, fuck it, we're going to make a movie just because we can. I mean, that's literally the backstory to Manos. It was born from a bet that this dude could make a movie on his own, like just basically do it from scratch with no knowledge of how to do it because he claimed that horror movies were easy to make,
He was like an insurance salesman or like a furniture store owner or something like that.
Insurance. I think he had multiple businesses, but the two main ones he's quoted as is insurance salesman and a fertilizer salesman. So this dude literally sold shit for a living. And it's just amazing to me that he decided to say, you know what? Horror movies don't look that hard. I think I could do it all by myself. And his other friend, who actually, I forget the dude's name, but I looked him up earlier today. And it's like the dude who wrote Towering Inferno and Poseidon Adventure and a bunch of rad fucking 70s movies.
Wow.
Something Silverstein, I want to say, something like that. I don't know. You guys, I'm sure, will look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about and discover that for yourself, because that dude was involved in some really cool movies. I want to say some newer ones too that will probably come to mind much later in the discussion. But the dude was like, "Nah, I don't think you can do it," and this dude, Warren, I think is his name, just said, "No, I think I can." Yeah, and he did. He did it.
Yeah, even
with
he played the dad in it too.
What's that?
He played the dad in the movie too.
He did. Yeah. I guess now's a good time to do the tail of the tape real quick. I don't know if you have it pulled up. I can get it up here in a couple of clicks of the keypad there. Manos came out in 1966. It was written, directed, and produced by Harold P. Warren. It also stars him as the master. Or, I mean, the dad, excuse me. He didn't have that sweet of a mustache. That mustache probably could have directed a better movie. But it stars Tom Neiman as the master. That's Jackie Neiman-Jones' dad. She plays the little kid in this movie. If you're a fan of Joe Sherlock movies, you've undoubtedly seen her in several films. It's also got Diane Mari and Harold P. Warren himself, along with John Reynolds, who I believe plays our boy Torgo. First and only film, before his very likely drug-induced suicide a month before the premiere. So he never even saw this movie completed, which is a goddamn shame because he is absolutely the highlight of it in my book. But yeah, that's the story so far, both our first impressions, and now we are on to you, Brandon. When did you discover this? What was your first impression of Manos? All that fun stuff.
Well, back in the 90s, I was like, early 90s, I was really big into MST3K all the way through, all the way through early college. I was a huge fan of it. And I used to watch these episodes over and over again. And of course, Manos is one of the more famous ones. So that was always fun. And I really did like the characters, but it was such a boring movie to watch on its own. A friend of mine actually gave me, because I was known for collecting bad movies early on. It was just
Still are.
bad movies that weren't like, say, it wasn't like movies like these more independent ones, but it was more like those B movies from the Ed Wood era or Baby Geniuses, or movies that are just terrible in general. So they ended up giving me a copy of Manos. It's a horrible copy, by the way, transfer wise. But, Manos doesn't need to be all that clear and crisp as far as I'm concerned. It's, I think it functions better.
I don't know, man. That HD really makes the tension pop. Yeah.
But I will say
really
that
makes that 9-minute driving scene fucking.
Mike Nelson's portrayal of Torgo for the Torgo's pizza delivery guy was great. It just for him reaching in his pants, let me get your complimentary crazy breath. I'm going, no. Down to the, hey, this took over an hour to get here. How come this pizza is still warm? And I'm like, ah.
That is classic.
So I've watched this on its own before, but it's one of those, I think, that really meets the definition of bad film in many ways. It has its moments, but definitely in many ways very bad.
Oh yeah. I think a large part of what makes Manos fascinating to me is that it even fucking exists in the first place, right? Like, it's a miracle that this ever became a finished film. I can do nothing but applaud that guy's just stubborn fucking determination to troll with this thing. And he was the most self-aware of it. Like, when he saw the final cut, apparently he was like, yeah, that's probably the worst movie ever made. I think it could be recut into a passable comedy or something like that. Like, he still saw potential in it. And I think that's important. Hidden within Manos is the idea for an absolute banger of a like grindhouse drive-in movie. So the dude at least had a cool concept going into it. Like, essentially the story revolves around these people and their daughter and their dog off on a family trip. They're trying to find, I think it's called the Valley Lodge is the place that they're looking for. Not that it has any relevance. They never say why they're going there. It's just a place they're going and they can't find it. And they're wandering around the back roads of what look to be maybe Southern California. And they end up at this rundown, looks like it might have been an old mission house or something like that. I don't know. And there's just this dude frying on acid there. And he tries to tell him, no, you shouldn't stay here. Because apparently they're like, oh, well, we can't find the lodge. This is the end of the road, pretty much, is this house. So instead of turning around and going back, they just force their way in the door. Poor Torgo. But I mean, you know, it's basically about like a polygamist cult out in the middle of the desert ran by this weird dude with a badass mustache that's like sacrificing people and hypnotizing motherfuckers into being his slave wives. I mean, it would be an awesome exploitation grindhouse flick or like a drive-in flick from the 70s if it was done in the 70s by people that knew what the fuck they were doing. This guy probably should have just, like, in a perfect world, sat on the idea for a while. But also, maybe we're in the perfect world where we got Manos and it rules because of how much it sucks. But it's got some cool stuff in it, which is what I think sets it apart from other films that are just bad. I think this, to play on what you were saying, meets that definition of so bad it's good, like, perfectly. Because if there wasn't the good, interesting elements of it, I think it would just be, it would look like an amateur, like, hack job, because that's what it is, you know. But the dude at least had a nugget of a good idea, is what I'm saying. I mean, and then they shot it with a camera that apparently could only do like 35 seconds of footage at a pop. So the whole movie is spliced together with, like, it's like if you made a movie with like a Nokia flip phone camera or something. I mean, it's like it shouldn't have even been attempted, you know. But this dude could not be stopped. It's like, it's amazing that he put the equivalent of $150,000 or something of his own money into it. It was like 19 grand at the time, but in today's money, that's how much it would be. And just went at this like a man possessed, you know. And he's the worst fucking character in the movie. You know, he is the worst character in the movie, hands down. But yeah, I don't want to take over the reins too much. I just think Manos is fucking fascinating. So, I don't know. You guys got anything to add as far as like just the merits of it existing? I mean, I think it's fucking insane.
I mean, I think it's important in a way to history for its existence. So it's become something bigger than it ever really was at the end. I mean, I guess that's the best way to say it, because Manos, as bad as it is, yeah, I do think that it could be. I always thought about it as like, this could be remade with the right budget and the right cast. Shoot, just the right cast and the right filmmaker, really, because we've seen a lot of people do amazing things with very little. You could make this into something legit scary. I mean, I don't have any feeling for the father whatsoever, because I'm just like, I mean, there's ignoring the person who's supposed to give you the warnings. There's completely just shoving them out of the way. No, I'm going behind the wall. Chainsaws, darn it.
Yeah, dude, I love the part where okay. let's lay it out a little.
Take my shit.
They get to the fucking house. He's like, I guess we'll just stay here. And the wife's like, I don't know if we should. And there's that whole long pause between them and Torgo where, like, he's totally fucking frying on acid and probably multitude of other drugs. Like, that's on record from everybody that was in the cast, you know. And it's visible on the dude through the entire movie that he is not in a good. No way should that dude be on a movie set, which is awesome. And this scene illustrates it, because there's that long exaggerated pause where it keeps flipping between them, and he's just like, you know, all fucking high, and you can almost see it play out in your head where he's like, I'm way too fucking high for this. And the wife's like, this guy's weird, you know, should we be staying here? And the husband's like, I don't know, it seems fine. And then it flips back to Torgo, and he's like, no, it's not, you know. And then it eventually ends, and he's like, I don't think the master would approve, and plus there's like a kid and a dog here I probably shouldn't be fucking high around, you know. And they just force their way in the door. It's like he not only gives them every indication that he's a creepy dude they probably shouldn't be hanging around, But he straight up tells them, no, you can't stay here.
More than once.
He's not going to like it. Yeah. And they just force him to take their fucking luggage in and out of the house like 2 or 3 times. But that eventually leads to that scene where he comes in and they see the painting of the master. And then Torgo straight up says some weird, like, unsettling shit. And the wife's like, I think we should probably go. And old Harold is just like, nah, honey, it's in your imagination. Don't worry about it. It's all good. We're just going to lodge here for the night.
I love how he treats this like it's the lodge. Like, darn it. Yeah, I this is the lodge. This is it. They don't say it's just some random house they stop by on the side of the road and just like, this is where we're going to do our vacation.
Yeah, it's like some weird covered wagon logic. Like, you can't just board at some random person's house. It's modern times, man.
Well, I don't get the worry of it's about to get dark soon. Like, if you're only about 10 miles off the main road, why don't you just turn back around? Like, you can still drive when it's dark. It's not a big deal.
Exactly. I mean, throughout this entire movie, the whole concept is shattered by the fact that they could have just turned their car around and literally just drove back up the dirt track past the kids making out, got back on the highway and found the right turnoff. But, you know, the guy that plays the dad is the dude very inadequately directing this movie. And so he's got to force them into this situation. So he just does it without any, like acting as if he isn't. You know, every horror movie kind of forces the characters into the situation that makes it a horror movie. But this one just is like, nope, they're going to stay despite all the warnings. This guy's clearly frying on acid. I like Torgo's little theme when he's bringing their luggage in and out of the house. It's good stuff. It's just hilarious, man. And I don't think it was intended to be hilarious at all, which is what makes it even more hilarious, you know? It's hard not to love that perfect train wreck of that whole sequence, you know?
If Torgo wasn't that high mess of a character, he would not be nearly as creepy and, well, really memorable as a character in the first place. I mean,
true.
I don't think if you think Manos Hands of Fate, Torgo is right there up front. There is no, you're not going to.
I think of him before I even think of the dude that's on a lot of the artwork for it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Because he really doesn't show up till like almost 40 minutes into the movie. Torgo's like the weird thing that they encounter right away. The movie's basically broken up into 3 sequences, or 4, excuse me. There's the driving, okay?
God.
Meeting Torgo and deciding the situation's creepy. The dog getting killed. Yeah, it's like this little, I guess the dog's dead. Sorry, honey. And then the whole end sequence where like they're deciding whether or not to fucking sacrifice them. And, you know, just the movie becomes a gigantic, beautiful mess. And that's kind of it. It's sort of a hard movie to break down plot wise. I mean, what really is the plot? You know, Torgo tries to get these people to go the fuck away, but they don't listen. So, you know, he's like, whatever, I guess they're staying. You know, I'm too fucking high to resist them, you know, and the master's going to be pissed. And he is pissed. He's like, well, we're going to kill these motherfuckers and that kid. And the ladies are like, nope, we don't think we should kill a kid. Some of them are down to do it because fuck them kids. But some of the older wives that he has, his hypnotized wives, you know, they're not down with it. And so revolt kind of forms between them, I guess. And various things happen that we'll touch on, but there really isn't much of a plot. This dude's running a polygamy cult out in the desert. These people force their way into his crosshairs, and you know what you might expect happens, I suppose.
Let's cut back to the driving scene for a second.
I love it.
That is horrible.
They pull over. The girl's freezing. It's like, well, maybe we should put the top up, honey. Like, no, she'll be fine. She can just move up front with us because obviously it's warmer up there than it is in the back seat. So, I mean, that's obviously like, let's start the movie off with bad parenting. The cops pull him over. Starts off with, hey, no excuses. I don't care if you're running late. I don't care if it's your first vacation. Your taillight's out. Oh, come on, officer, give us a break. Okay. Like rips the ticket up and
he just rips up the ticket.
No excuses. Oh, come on. Okay.
I
And
love
then-
You're
that
gonna die
country
anyway,
wisdom
so.
I love that country wisdom of if you're running late, that just means you should have started earlier. Like that's
Oh, they still
good
use that to
advice.
this day.
yeah.
And then you have like they're pulling up on the house, and you would think as like the husband or father, hey, I'll go talk to this guy myself. And it's like, no, I'm gonna get my whole family out. And we're gonna go over here, dog included, because he already knows what he's gonna do. He's already made his decision before he even talks to this guy.
And he's holding a giant staff with like a gnarled fucking hand on the end of it that looks like he made in shop class while on acid. I mean, it's just there's everything about it is not inviting. He's got weird knees, which I guess is because he's supposed to be a satyr, like Phil from Hercules. He's supposed to kind of be one of those creatures. Never explained. I think it's just one of those things where they were like, well, that's how we made the costume, but we can't afford the rest of the shit to explain it. Like, I imagine there was originally in concept, I would hope, a scene where Torgo got stripped when he was on the altar thing, and it showed that he was actually like this satyr creature.
No pun intended, but I'm sure there was a lot of half-baked ideas that didn't make it to fruition.
Oh, yeah, but the thing is, they were good ideas. Like,
I know.
His fucking devil wives that he had hypnotized with his cult magic were supposed to have tails, but I guess the like modeling agency that he rented those ladies from, it was the 60s, folks.
Yeah.
They didn't want him portrayed like that or something, so they compromised on like the sash things that they're wearing. This is all according to the internet too. I don't have like a fancy copy yet of Manos, so I don't know if this is all 100% verifiable background information, but it seems legit.
We need I would like to see this. Get a 4K Vinegar Syndrome release of Manos with a bunch of commentaries.
Didn't
Maybe
Synapse do it? I thought they did.
I don't think so.
I feel
I
like
don't
they did.
I mean, the version I got, it's pretty much, anybody could make it technically.
Oh,
Because
the Blu-ray?
I think it's open license or something like that. But
Yeah, it's public domain because he
domain.
never filed any copyrights for it.
There's a
He
Blu-ray
didn't even
for
know
it.
that was a thing.
There is?
Yep.
Where is it?
It's on Amazon.
It's a Synapse, man.
It's got a freaking great cover.
I'll have to
Yeah,
get
the
one
purple,
just
the purpley
because.
one. That's the
Can't see if
Synapse
they're
one.
good.
It's,
Could be
got
yours for
the
$17.99.
2K restoration, audio commentary featuring the master Tom Neiman and
Oh, yeah.
Jackie Ray.
I'm getting
Neiman
that
Jones.
eventually.
Grindhouse edition, Blu-ray only bonus.
It's got a 31-minute featurette on it, and then
There
a
we
couple
go.
other smaller ones. So
It's on my to get list.
And
Not going
Manos, Manos
not
the Hands
going
of Fate Grindhouse edition, Blu-ray only bonus. Like, that's worth it just for that.
yeah, that's sick. It's just some gnarly stuff going on in this film, man. I think we were lead us through it, Cody. Sorry, I cut you
I think
off.
there's not much more to hit on. We pretty much summed it up just by going off those parts. I mean, it's family ends up kind of inviting themselves over to stay at this place, and then wife starts hearing noises outside, so the husband goes out there to take care of it. Dog runs out there too. Dog gets killed. He comes in, tells the wife, and then tells her to go inside, and then she starts getting Torgo starts creeping on her a little bit, and husband comes back. She doesn't say anything like that happened at all. Just that,
Which is weird.
it's time to
Super weird.
go. Car won't start, and then
Hell yeah, bro. What's up, Michael? Thanks for popping in.
I might be skipping around a little bit here. I mean, Torgo starts talking to himself out loud about how this is going to be his wife and he doesn't need another wife, and then goes to the little daughter runs away. She comes back with the Rottweiler, and so the dad goes to investigate where she found the dog from, and that's kind of like
That is
maybe
a beautiful dog too, and I guess it was the Jones family dog or whatever, or the Neiman family. I mean, yeah. The only compensation that anyone got for making this movie, allegedly, and I'm inclined to believe it, is that he bought Jackie Neiman Jones a new bicycle, and then he gave their family 50 pounds of dog food for that dog, which is a pretty rad gesture, you know. Everybody else was paid in shares of the profit of the movie. Well, I mean, if that was included in all future releases of it, they would at least get a little chunk of all the different versions that came out. So they might be doing pretty good off of it nowadays if it had been copyrighted correctly, but it wasn't. So here we are.
It is kind of too bad in a way, but well, actually, what I want is there is one of the skits they did in the Mystery Science Theater sketch. Joel comes on as Manos, which of course they're like, you are not intimidating in the slightest. So no, you are a terrible Manos. But he has the thing, except it's feet instead of the hands on the sides. I want that.
I think I kind of remember that. It's been a while since I've seen those. I need to revisit them, hopefully this weekend. My theory with the whole dog getting killed, because that's never really explained. See, my whole theory in general is that Manos is not as disjointed as it appears to be. It is, but it isn't. If you, I guess, get high enough while you're watching it to read between the lines. My theory is that Torgo killed the dog. Because before that, there's the part where he comes out and he's like, no, you know, like I think he says the master likes you or whatever. And that's during that whole sequence where he says something about that the master's left this world, but he's with us always or whatever. And then, you know, he says some other creepy shit and the wife is like, dude, we should leave. And the husband's just like, no, it's in your head, honey. You're just imagining it. But my theory is that Torgo killed the dog, probably suckled some blood from it or something, I would imagine, and disabled the car. Because that was, I believe, after that point where, you know, he was like, no, you guys can stay. The master likes you or whatever. So they were already marked for some type of nefarious purposes by that point, you know. I think they just ran out of time to shoot Torgo maybe killing the dog, or he was too high to do either of those scenes. So they just decided not to explain it. But there's little gaps like that in the movie that you can sort of fill in. Like a lot of people cite the random cat fight towards the end as being like a moment that's not explained. But it kind of is, you know. I think that was the lady that was supposed to be getting sacrificed later in the movie. So the other ladies were against her by that point. The ones that were like, yeah, I'm down to kill that kid. Fuck kids.
Right.
You know, so one of them attacked her. It's like not that you know, inexplicable, but what we're missing is the scene where she confronts her and attacks her. But you know, he was shooting this shit 35 seconds at a time on rented cameras, so he was rushing through the entire production, and I just find that hilarious. But if you can get like, because I got real stoned watching this last night, and I think as we were saying before we went live, that definitely helps. You know, my imagination was just sort of running wild with different bits of it, and so in my brain, Torgo skitters out the back and goes full satyr mode and pounces on the fucking dog and like chupacabras its ass, and then disables the car. You know, and if we remade this, of course that's what we would do. You know.
See, I thought the dog, the hellhound or whatever the thing is, killed the other dog. That was my theory.
That's a much more logical but less entertaining solution to that conundrum. I prefer Torgo pouncing on it like from a good 15 feet away and just like with his satyr legs and munching it. I bet you Guillermo del Toro could do a really good, like if you wanted a mainstream artsy version of Manos, I think he would be the dude to tag in to do that.
Just give me Nicolas Cage as the master, and I'm in.
Fucking A, dude! I want that movie so bad now.
Yes,
just have him play everyone, including the little girl. Yeah, I think that would be amazing.
It's a one-man show.
Yes.
What do you guys think of the whole cult setup? What do you think of the reveal of the master? Because that's arguably the big set piece, I guess, of the movie is everything that takes place in that like pillared, altar area, which apparently for a time was a real location. I don't know if it's still there. I feel like we'd see people post in horror groups or B-movie groups about visiting it if it was, but it was just a real location they found that they could use. God knows what it was being used for or what the intent of it was. It's a creepy looking spot, and one of the things that really sold me on the movie the first time I watched it was all the footage of them there like that, you know. What are your thoughts? Good service.
Brandon, you go ahead.
I don't have a lot of thoughts on it. I mean, to me, everything with the location kind of burned out as soon as that road trip happened. Which, by the way, pacing needs to be talked about in this movie, as in nobody ever thought about it at any way, shape, or form when doing this thing. There are parts of this movie that drag on needlessly long. Even the cat fight, which I love how they commented in the movie, like in the Mystery Science Theater, was like, the reason for the film right here. I was like, there is a part of me that thinks, yes, this would be perfect. The guy probably was like, ooh, I really want to get some women doing a cat fight, and I want to have like a filming it, and I need an excuse.
Allegedly, he tried to get the mom. I forget her name now. She actually, there was some sketchy shit according to the internet that went down with this. Okay, he tried to get the mom to get naked during the scene where Torgo was peeping on her, and when she refused, he tried to play it off like, "Oh, it was just a test. I just wanted to see if you would agree," or something. I don't know what it was just a weird, creepy way to back out of it if that's true.
He just said it like Torgo would.
And then I guess he enrolled her in a beauty contest, dude. And because she was hot, I'll give her that, you know, or I'll give him that. She is a really beautiful woman, the lady that played the mom. But signing her up for a beauty pageant without her knowledge and only telling her once she'd been accepted is pretty weird, because he thought that it would be like good promotion for the movie if she won. And to be fair, she came close to winning. She was on stage as a finalist by the end of it. So. But it's just such a weirdo fucking thing to do. Am I right? Like, you don't just sign people up for beauty pageants. Even in the 60s, that feels like a stretch. But this dude there were no holds barred in his pursuit of conquering the act of making this movie and promoting it. And to his credit, he got this piece of shit to play like a solid regional drive-in circuit and have a red carpet premiere at a theater in El Paso, Texas, which is pretty awesome, dude. That with limos and everything. Of course, they had to like drop one group of people off and then drive the limo around the block and pick up the other ones. But that's so fucking. It's almost heartwarmingly DIY, you know. That's something I could see us doing, and this dude was doing it in the 60s, which is pretty badass. I don't know. I think the cult atmosphere of the movie is pretty solid. I think the scenes at that location was beautiful, by the way. I mean, with the pillars surrounding like that weird altar thing. And I think that burn pit thing might have been like a fixture of the location, you know? It was like some art installation, I'm assuming. It was the 60s, so Torgo wasn't the only person on acid. And there was a lot of places that were, you know, embracing the free spirit artistic expression crap like that. So it was probably some hippie monument that existed for a little bit until some Texas boys drug it down with their fucking coal rolling trucks or whatever. I don't know. Who knows what happened. But it's like a rad, weird Greek sacrificial pit looking thing that they have there with like this dope hand sculpture in the middle and the fire pit. You can clearly tell the dude knew of the location before he wrote the movie, I think. I wouldn't be surprised if the whole Hands of Fate part of the title and everything came from whatever that metal sculpture thing was there. But yeah, I don't know. I think it adds cool atmosphere to it. I think his cloak is badass. I guess the cloak became a regular Halloween costume for him every year after this, and then his son continues the tradition after his death, which is pretty awesome. So there's some place somewhere where he can trick or treat a house, and the master from Manos, the Hands of Fate, opens the door, you know. And that warms my schlock filled little heart, you know. It's just it's a beautiful
I'd
thing.
do that. If I had that costume, I'd be like parading it all over the place. It's like, yeah, I was Manos.
You can buy them. Jackie Naaman Jones custom makes them.
That's awesome, and I'm going to do it. So basically, you know, from there, like the whole finale of this movie is very disjointed. There's not a lot of, it's not very coherent. Basically, the master doesn't want anything to do with these people. He just wants to sacrifice them to Manos, whoever he is, their polygamy god, I guess. Whoever gives him his hypnotizing powers to be able to capture these slave wives. He's just going to sacrifice these people to him. He doesn't, I don't even think he wants to keep the mom. He just wants to sacrifice them all. They are, you know, the whole conundrum of the movie for the evil folks is whether or not they're down to kill this kid. At the end of the movie, they eventually decide to basically save her by making her one of the wives, which drew some controversies from some people. Again, according to the internet, allegedly the creator dude was attacked by an old lady with her handbag. Like, she just whipped the shit out of him with her purse after the premiere because she was mad about the little girl being one of the wives at the end. I don't think it was done with any malice or creepiness. That honestly felt like one of those things where it was just like, well, I guess that's the way to save her. And we find out that the dad has become the new Torgo. I wonder if he gets the same access to the acid vaults that Torgo clearly had when he was doing the job. One huge subplot we are kind of skipping over, though, is the whole thing with Torgo, where he wants a wife of his own. Cody mentioned it. But I think that shouldn't be overlooked. You know, basically, he's his little Igor or whatever helping him capture, not even capture. I don't think Torgo's helping him really capture. If these people are any indication, all these slave wives just forced their way into staying at this house. But you know, he's there watching her over he's the caretaker of the house, and he clearly moves around some luggage, and he decides that he deserves a wife of his own. He's tired of watching the master just collect these wives. He just wants a wife of his own, particularly the mom, which, you know, let me just look here and see what her name was. I feel bad that we just keep calling her the mom. But yeah, he you know, develops a fixation with her. He's peeping on her in the window. And then he's like having like this freak out, you know, at the cult site or whatever, the lair, which apparently is just in the next room. Did you guys notice that when the little girl, when he takes her to find out where the dog comes from, and he's like, where'd you find this dog, honey? And she's just like, oh, just over here. And they're like, whoops, illicit occult activity going on right in the next room. I fucking love the editing of that whole thing. But the mom, I believe, is played by Diane Mari. And she's probably the best actor in the entire movie. You know, she's about the only person in here I could see being in another movie. Maybe the master as well. He had a good mustache, so you could just plug him in places. But she had some talent, and Torgo clearly saw that, so he develops a fixation with her, and he wants to keep her, basically. The master finds out about this. He's none too pleased, so he decides to melt off Torgo's hand after threatening multiple times to kill him, which he doesn't. Which is why I believe Torgo was so, you know, central to the planned sequel to this movie that never happened at the time.
Actually, wasn't the like the wife that he was supposed to kill pictured at the end back on the post again?
I believe she was. Yeah, everyone basically just got incorporated in somehow. They don't even explain how they convinced the master to take the daughter as one of the wives. She's just there.
You know, for a horror film about like this death cult type thing, there's a remarkably low body count. There's like the dog. That's it. That is the only death in this film. Yeah,
it's yeah. Well, in Torgo's hand.
Yeah, Torgo's hand.
But who knows? He could maybe grow a new one if he's a proper satyr. He might have some mythical Greek powers that allow him to like regenerate it, like when a lizard drops its tail or something. What were you gonna say, Cody?
Did either one of y'all notice it looked like Torgo was sleeping on like a pile of dirt in one of those bedrooms?
Yeah. I love too where I love the fact that he says he's gonna kill him several times, and for the most part, all he does is like point his stick at him, and then he fucking takes him in there, and the ladies just fondle the fucking shit out of Torgo. And they kind of slap him around a little bit too, but who knows? Maybe he likes that. The only bummer part about all of it is that he gets his hand melted off. And then the crazy part of that is they clearly sent this dude who's on acid running into the darkness in the middle of their actual night for night shots on fire. Like his sleeve is like fucking on fire as he's running into the.
That's why you never saw him again.
Yeah, maybe. It's just crazy. All of it seems so dangerous, but the effect is pretty cool. And that's one of the points in the movie where they're like quick cut editing really works for the movie because it looks like he fucking used some magic to melt off Torgo's hand. Maybe I was just really stoned, but I was super impressed by that this time. And I think I probably always have been, but you know, you get a little blood leaking down as it's like on fire and he's holding it, cackling all menacingly in his robe. It's just such a cool looking scene. And I think they accidentally executed it really well too. I'm not going to give that dude any credit for doing that on purpose. I think the 35 seconds of footage he had just happened to run out at exactly that moment. And then when he started it again on the effect of the melty hand, it just happened to marry together really well in the editing process. Or somebody's fixed that over time. I can't say.
See, to me, this is sort of just a kind of version of Dracula because Torgo's obviously Renfield. He's the guy who's hoping to get some of the power from the master, so he's in there serving the master. And the master probably makes promises that he never keeps, like most of them do in there. And it's like, yeah, just go string this guy along until he's not useful anymore, and then I'll get another one, which he does.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, it's all the whole gimmick of the movie is that he can enslave people with like some type of hypnotism, you know. Again, not explained, but who cares? He's just a mystical guy in a robe and a mustache, and he, you know, sleeps on this slab of stone when he's not capturing slave wives. I mean, it doesn't even ever show you what he does with the slave wives, or even gives you any indication that he does anything with them other than just collects them like Pokemon. So I don't know, man. I think he successfully with this film made a movie for dudes like me that would have just gotten ripped and went to the drive-in and been like, "Whoa, that was something," you know. I don't think he intended for it to be that, you know. I don't think he really knew what the movie was like until he saw it at the premiere himself, and he was like, "Yeah, that's real bad," you know. and mysteriously, I'm sure he probably edited it himself too, but he was doing it as such a rush job that I'm sure he wasn't watching it back as he was editing it, and so that led to a lot of quirks that the movie had that he probably couldn't even anticipate himself, you know, which is just fascinating to me. Manos is a beautiful train wreck. That's the best way that I could put it, like in filmmaking terms. It's absurd, it's bizarre, a lot of it's pretty nonsensical, and there's some cool imagery smattered here and there, some cool shots too. Yeah, he had an eye for, I guess, like angles for some of the stuff. I really like the scene where it's like shooting through the staff, like through the holes in the hand staff. I think that shot's pretty cool. And obviously they knew how to pull off a cool melty hand effect, so somebody had to have known what they were doing, or at least paid attention enough to pretend like they did. So there's just things like that you can't really explain about Manos that are good, and then there's things about it that are bad, but they're bad in such a weird kind of a way that it just doesn't, you know, it feels like it comes from another place, like some other dimension where movies, they don't know what movies are, so they tried to make what they think a movie is, you know. It's fucking awesome. I just am endlessly entertained by it. I think I'm the only one of us who doesn't prefer the riff tracks versions of it, you know, and I don't know what that says about me, but
hey, people like what they like. I don't judge anybody for liking anything. I mean, there is a audience for everything. there is not a film out there that doesn't have people who say this is my favorite film. In my opinion, I mean, shoot, Sallow, good example. I watched that first discussion on Sallow after we did it. I mean, I remember, I think it was Katie and Celeste were both like saying this is my favorite film of all times.
Gross.
And it's just such a
Why?
great film that makes me feel so good inside. I'm like, ugh. But that's the thing, is it was just like, that is, but that's them. If they really love that film, then they really love it. So, hey, if somebody can really love that film, I think that finding people who look at this or even say Manos is...
Man, I feel so attacked. I don't know if Sallow is a good comparison, but I feel like that's several leagues beyond what this is. I mean, you guys are proof that there's a way that this can be found. Just like the dude said, with different editing or different elements, it could be a serviceable comedy. Like this has some type of a wide stream appeal if you doctor it up in the right way. Sallow.
You could make it to a scary film.
You probably could. I don't know, man. I mean, I just think that it's a fascinating artifact of B-movie history. It's something that, kind of established a lot of the don'ts in DIY filmmaking as well, that we still see repeated sometimes. Like even in Chris Seaver movies, I've seen him make the same sort of Manos mistakes where they're doing a night for night thing with big lights where there's a bunch of bugs and they get attracted in there. And there's really not too much you could do about that other than hang up mosquito nets outside of the frame to try to stop some of them from flying in. But yeah, I mean, it's still every mistake you see made in Manos is still mistakes you see made in every DIY horror movie, just not all at once. That's the thing that makes Manos special. It's like they almost had a checklist of everything you shouldn't fucking do when you're doing a movie like this, and they just went down it and checked them all and then threw a bunch of weird shit into the mix. And I think that only happens in 1965 or 4, whenever they actually made it.
Once we get into some of the more the classic masters like Ed Wood, things like that. I mean, shoot, Bride of the Monster is still a favorite of mine, regardless of how bad it is. It's going to be fun watching some of these things from different angles.
Oh yeah, definitely, dude. I'm looking forward to the Ed Wood stuff. Go ahead, Cody.
Also, with this movie, I mean, maybe this movie shouldn't be good because this is the guy that thought he could do it. Had no right doing it. So I mean, that almost shows that anybody that's like, oh, I can make one. It's like with these micro budget movies that we all love so much. Everybody still can't do them, but I mean, a lot of people watch it and like, oh, I can do this crap. It's easy, and then obviously you can't.
Honestly, though, I think there is something to be said about most of them making infinitely worse movies than Manos, because there is a certain genuineness in the movie when you think about it. I mean, the guy at least tried a little bit to make it good at the same time. He failed, but it's like there was the desire to make it something unique. You don't sew up a fucking robe like that if you don't kind of want to make an impact on people with it or make something different. So I think there's that little bit of extra pizzazz in the intent behind Manos that makes it something pretty special. I think honestly that probably the same thing could be said about the modern people that do it. They just do it more lazily because of the technology we have at hand. But this guy, I believe, was probably a horror fan. There had to have been a reason. I mean, he'd seen enough horror movies to feel like, oh, I could probably do one of those. So even those assholes, like, at least there's some fandom, I would hope, coming into it. But maybe it's the modern era that makes the stuff done by those sort of people less entertaining than something like Manos. What they had to do it with at the time and the ideas that were floating around, and the fact that there was no playbook for that either. I don't think that there was anyone else just do it like that. Like, fuck it, I'm gonna take a break from selling fucking shit for people's crops and make a horror movie real fast. I think it might be his only movie too.
Probably.
He had
I mean,
ideas for other ones, but no one wanted to make them because Manos sucked.
I mean, Lloyd Kaufman even is he's known for saying anybody can make a film if they want. Now, whether that's a good, the difference is not a film; it's anybody. Now, if he were to say anybody can make a good film if they want, that'd be different.
Right.
Yeah.
But the idea is anybody can make a film, and I think that despite how terrible it is a film.
It
And
is.
the fact is, it's how infamous it is, mainly thanks to MST3K. But I think that
Well,
really it's a success in that sense.
Good. Sorry. Oh, dude, yeah, this movie has succeeded far beyond even his wildest dreams at the time. I think, honestly, Manos was done with just the intent of him proving that he could do it. I don't think even if it had turned out as good as he hoped, it would have been something he thought was going to be a big success. It was what it got was probably what it deserved, which is a regional drive-in run and a awesome red carpet premiere that I'm sure he went very broke, or at least a lot out of pocket, making as awesome as it was, So it was a passion project in its own weird, bizarre, could only happen in the 1960s kind of a way, and I applaud it for that. Manos is like an ugly dog, it's not great. It doesn't serve a lot of purposes. Most of them are too small to be of any type of defensive, use or hunting or anything like that. It's like a pug, right? Like, it's a sweet little thing that you just kind of like. It's so ugly that it's sort of cute. That's Manos to me, I think, in the grand scheme of things. I love the movie. Is it good? No. It doesn't even approach being good. But it's got the nugget of a good idea buried underneath it, which I think is what has inspired people to do sequels to it, or very well could inspire us one day to do a remake of it. Like if I won the lottery tomorrow, Manos remake would be one of the first things I would write on my dry erase board. Like it's just happening. It's fucking happening. Jackie Neiman Jones is still alive too, and she's played the Master before in a movie, I believe.
So have any of you?
Go.
Have any of y'all watched the sequel, Manos Returns?
Yeah.
So how is it?
There it is. My man.
Oh, I haven't. I just haven't watched it.
I liked it. I mean, it's Tanya Atomic directed it. She co-wrote it with Jackie Neiman Jones and somebody else I can't quite remember. And then Sherlock executive produced it or something. So I mean,
and shot it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's good. I mean, it's definitely people that her dad was in it right before he died. So I mean, he reprises his role one last time.
Didn't a couple other people reprise them, or did that not come to fruition from the Kickstarter stage?
I don't remember.
Basically everyone who wasn't dead and the director came back.
I mean, there might have been. It maybe slipped past me, but I knew that. I mean, I knew Jackie was in it again, and then her dad was in it again for sure. But I mean, it was
so dope.
It's a movie that was. I mean, they wanted to make the best sequel to that movie they could, so it's definitely worth a watch. There's plenty of special features added onto it. I want to say there's a commentary track. There's also footage of her dad showing up for the wrap party, and it was like right before he died. So I mean, that was pretty neat.
Beautiful. So you like it though?
Yeah.
Would you say it's better than the original, or a worthy companion to it?
It's different. It makes more sense, I would say.
His own thing.
So they took it in like a serious direction, kind of. They didn't do the whole like, oh, we're making fun of the original being so bad kind of a thing, or what sort of direction does it go in?
No, this one almost has more like a. I don't want to say it wrong because I haven't watched it in a while. But it more is showing more of like the brides are in it again, and then it almost is showing like more of the people that have probably passed away as a result of staying there. So it's got some ghosts and stuff of the house.
That's an interesting idea.
So I mean, it's a different take, but it's I mean, I'm sure they had, obviously it was people that had made stuff before. So the movie, the pacing was better. It made sense. There were no just, here's 10 minutes of us driving somewhere kind of thing, like in the original movie. So, I mean, it's different. I think you guys will like it.
It's on
I
my
guess
list.
apparently the original driving sequence was supposed to have opening credits over it, but there's not enough fucking people in this movie or the crew to fill up
No.
that much opening credits. So I don't know what was going on there. I think honestly he didn't know how to edit, because apparently on set that was a common thing he would tell people when something would be fucked up. He's just like, "Don't worry, Hollywood movie magic, we'll fix it in post." This guy was the king of "we'll fix it in post," and he only allowed 2 takes. Again, this is all according to the internet, for each scene. So,
But also, you think
insane
about it without editing it. I mean, the movie was what, like an hour 10, hour 15.
Yep.
So I mean, if
It's
that
actually
stuff
not
would have
that
got
long.
cut, it'd have been a much smaller. Like I think if they would have cut this movie down to 30 minutes, it would have been great.
I'd say, yeah, I'd give a 45. I do like some of the
Okay.
awkward length of
Yeah.
some fucking scenes, like a lot of the Torgo stuff, especially when they first meet him at the door. And I don't know how long it lasts for, dude, but I was laughing so.
I wouldn't
fucking
cut any
hard
of his
last
stuff
night
for
watching
sure.
it. Yeah,
Oh,
that
no,
shit
yeah.
needs to be in there. But yeah, 30 to 45 is probably the ideal length for this, but then it wouldn't have been feature length. So I think you're onto something. Some of it was, he made excuses for why it was padding, but it was padding,
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Manos is a very improbable little film that shouldn't exist. In no universe should this have ever came through to a completed product. And our lives are all better for the fact that this dude was so fucking stubborn that this movie somehow became a thing that MST3K could later riff and turn into this phenomenon of B-movie baddom. It's will always be top tier, so bad it's good shit and riff worthy. And I think it was almost unintentionally designed to be riffed with all the open space that's in between all of the stuff in the film. So it's tailor made for it. I think it would be really fun one day to get us and some of our B movie friends together and do our own dub of Manos and like just totally ruin the thing even more than it already is. I think that would be a worthy pursuit. We are going to jump into our favorite scenes, favorite characters, which the only answer is Torgo or the Master, but maybe some of us like the dog. We're going to find out real soon. You guys talk amongst each other. I do have to step away real quick, and then I'll be back, and we'll close this bad boy out. I think we're right on track for this being one of our most economic episodes in terms of runtime in a while. So, back at you in a moment.
Brandon, you go ahead and run through your favorites, and I'll do mine.
Well, I mean, Torgo's easily my favorite character because he's the most memorable with that. That whole scene at the beginning where he's like, Master wouldn't approve of coming here. It's like, Master, it'll be fine. We're staying here for the night. I mean, it's like, man, the audacity. I mean, it's like in Friday the 13th, if the guy's like, it's got a death curse. It's like, okay, we're going to move into your house after this. And instead of like, that's just way out there.
Yeah, I think mine's definitely Torgo too. I would say favorite scenes would either be a toss-up from him, first introduction of him, or him just kind of going against the Master and wanting to have a wife for himself, and basically just him standing his ground finally.
He can't.
Oh. Yeah, it's a cool subplot, man. I think that it wasn't given quite the time or the care, I guess. I don't know. It was given plenty of time, but if this was a better movie, that could have been a really compelling portion of it. I would love to see, like I said, like a Guillermo del Toro take on something like this, where it's almost like this fantastical Pan's Labyrinth type thing, where like they go out into the desert and accidentally walk into this old mission house and are transported into it, almost kind of like a Narnia thing, which would be a perfect parallel too, because in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the first little kid meets when they go into the wardrobe is a satyr running along with like a fucking handful of parcels. So they could have had Torgo be like the acid fueled fucking, you know, doppelganger to that little satyr in the wardrobe, only it's in this weird broken down like Spanish mission house in the desert, and then they're transported into this cult dimension with the master and stuff like that. Like I said, my imagination was running pretty wild last night when I was watching it, and that was largely probably on account of the hash and just the fact that, you know, when you like, as soon as you fire this bitch up and you get to that part where they start singing "Row, row, row your boat," I think Brandon commented on that as well. But for me, it was like it took me into this weird like dream universe, you know, where I'm watching this strange. I was in B movie heaven when I was watching this last night, because it's just so fucked up, dude, and fun when, you know, especially if you're perfectly chilled out like that and just ready for it to take you on its weird elongated ride of disjointed madness, you know.
I kept thinking of that scene in Dirty Harry where the guy is like, and of course, my first thought was that, and then Mystery Science Theater, they were like, "Yeah, the right thing." Like I don't know if y'all have seen the first Dirty Harry where the
it's crazy,
killer's on
dude.
the bus and he's like
Practically
forcing
a horror film
for your boat. That's like
first Dirty Harry does not fuck around.
That was
that
my
dude,
first.
the dad from Hellraiser is the villain in that one, isn't he?
Oh, is he?
The first Dirty Harry? Yeah, I think it's the same dude, the guy that plays like the dad in the first Hellraiser movie. I forget his name, but man, he's fucked up. There's that part where he's like he makes it look like Dirty Harry kicked the shit out of him for no reason or whatever. That part always disturbs the shit out of me, man. That movie is kind of terrifying.
Dirty Harry's awesome though. It is.
The other one's taken a different direction, but that first one is grimy, bro. I could see the parallel, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to pick a favorite scene. I guess if I had to pick for spectacle, it would be where Torgo gets his hand melted off. I think for, I guess, what could have been material, it's like Cody said, the whole subplot of him, you know, going in there and having that freak out where he's like, "Fuck you, I want my wife, you know, you've got all these wives and I have to constantly watch and like be alone," you know. It made me really feel for the dude. And then in terms of funny throwaway stuff, I guess you could call it, it would definitely be that awkward interaction with Torgo where he's trying to tell him not to stay there, and then the husband just keeps insisting, and then there's that long like awkward silence where it keeps cutting between the people and they're just looking at each other. Torgo's like, "Ooh," you know, like he's so fucking high, dude. And then it's perfect justification too afterwards. Where like when we redub it, I'll write it and you guys will see what I'm talking about. But there's totally, the wife is like, "This guy's high," and he's like, "Yes, I am," you know, and the husband's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then Torgo's like, "Look, man, there's a kid and a dog here. I shouldn't be high around either of them, you know." And then later when he eats the dog, as I suspect, it, you know, it makes sense why he was mentioned the dog. Poodles are useless anyways. That Doberman was much more majestic and, you know, actually useful as a hellhound. The movie would be infinitely more funny, though, if what got killed was the Doberman and what she let out as the hellhound was the poodle. So that would be my final input on that. But I think that about does it for, you know, Manos, man. There's not too much you can say about a movie like this other than that it kind of rocks for different reasons depending on the way that you watch it. I think the most impactful thing of all of it, though, really is that it is a huge champion of that DIY ethic, you know, the ethos or whatever you want to call it, of just get out there and do it, man. Maybe it won't be good. It doesn't necessarily have to be. I mean, look at Manos. It's got one of the most enduring legacies of any B movie ever. And that's only going to continue because of discussions like these or various people discovering it as they get into schlock. And I don't think it was a movie that was ever intended to be necessarily good. And here we are. I feel like we've had a lot of fun talking about it. I don't know. What would your remake of Manos be like? I guess we'll close out the last few minutes here with that. If you had to do a remake or a sequel to it, Cody, which would you rather do, and where would you take it? Do you think?
I would want a Torgo origin story.
Amazing. Actually, I'm totally down with that. Like a prequel,
Yep.
the Torgology. It's we could have several
Torgoverse
of him going on various adventures. He was probably a roadie for like the Grateful Dead at some point. I can imagine all types of adventures for that little satyr to go on. What about you, Stephen?
Oh, I'd remake it into something like a full budget horror film, just to basically screw with everybody else, to have something that is like a B movie, be a successfully truly scary big budget horror version. I see that would be great. Like, make the place, instead of like this little like 2-building house down the road, make it into like this haunted house, having them deal with like murderous ghosts, and having Torgo going around. I just said eating the dog, doing crazy stuff like that, like really tweaking it and that. And then finally, when you get the master in there, having decapitating people, taking their hands off.
Steal
Make
some
that
shit
into like a
from,
real like gore fest.
You could steal some shit from Cube and have it to where he could like thump his staff and it would move rooms in the fucking castle around so that they're like perpetually lost in some labyrinth of fucking death. I think that would be awesome. I think mine was pretty. I mean, I talked a little briefly about like ideas I would have put into it, but I think I would go for almost a better version of what they did with the Grindhouse double bill, where they kind of made it look like a 70s movie. And I would just basically do a straightforward remake, but tweaking some of it to be, I think, closer to what he kind of thought maybe he was doing, or what it would have been if it had just been an idea on paper that happened in the 70s. I think that's the route that I would want to take with it. I'd want it to be kind of filthy and like Manson-esque with, some cool mythological aspects to it and stuff like that. So I think that outside of like it, being a huge champion of the DIY mentality, it's also like such good groundwork for your imagination to run wild with it. They give you just enough in Manos of these nuggets of like cool ideas that it's no wonder that several people have been inspired to try to do prequels or sequels. I wouldn't be surprised if there's comic books for it out there somewhere at this point. That'd be really cool. If there's not, there needs to be. So yeah, it's just it's a wellspring of like inspiration. It might not be a great movie, but it certainly brought out some greatness in some people, and it looks like Manos Returns might be a solid little slice of that. So I'm looking forward to getting my copy of that. I'm looking forward to covering it with these guys for you fine folks at some point in the near future. You got anything you want to plug, Brandon, before we get out of this bitch? I think we've done a pretty good justice to Manos today. What do you guys think?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, shortly after this, we'll be hopefully getting our Bad Ben eulogy discussion finally done. 10 out of 11 films, almost there. And then, of course, I finished editing my Horror Tale 666 Part 3 psychoanalysis. I finished it.
Awesome.
There we
And
go.
I'm looking at like this massive thing. It's 35 minutes long. It's been 2 months on 35-minute video, but it's gonna be debuting next week, so it's gonna be kind of cool. Finally. So check that out. I spent a lot of work on those things.
Fucking A. What about you, Cody? You got anything coming up? Anything you want to lay some seeds for?
Yeah. My first movie from my trip in Louisiana is now available for sale, Blamed. You can now order that off of Kanaki. Finally, limited run of 200 DVDs, 200 Blu-rays of the premiere version. And that version will include my Q&A from the premiere since I wasn't able to be there. So that's pretty neat. I will be filming this weekend my parts for Paranoia Tapes 10. And then my son Blaze sent in his stuff yesterday, the day before, for his Paranoid Tapes 11, the teen years.
Very cool. I believe the soundtrack to Blamed is also half off currently.
I think so. I think it's $5.
I read his post, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So if you want to grab the Blamed red carpet premiere edition bundle along with the soundtrack to the film, you can get that for cool. I think it's $25 plus a little bit of shipping, and it'll be yours. So get on that Kunaki site and hook it up. You can also get all of Jack's other Paranoia tapes on there. I believe there is 9 in total right now,
and then a special set.
Yeah, the Uncle Saw collection, including our boy Cody over here. I don't really have much to plug. We did a Kiss discussion. Me and Dane from Dangerous Arts and my buddy Josh York from the Metal Mixtape down in Medford, Oregon, excuse me, covering the first 3 Kiss albums. It was a pretty fucking good time. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Upcoming stuff that I have as far as this channel goes is we are going to be recording a discussion for Tromeo and Juliet next weekend, which we will release the following Tuesday, with also Dane from Dangerous Arts and our buddy Forrest, who is longtime Trauma collaborator. He's in a bunch of independent films and has worked behind the scenes on stuff we've covered here on the channel, like Bobby Hackman's Victim No More. As just one example. So Forrest is going to be coming on for those. We're going to probably drop one of those on you guys every month. I'm not really trying to have that interfere with these too much. It's just, a fun way to pick through the Trauma filmography and get some coverage of that over here. Because in addition to Full Moon, Trauma has been a big part of my life and my B-movie history. So looking forward to covering some of that stuff and hopefully, changing Cody a little bit on some of it. I think there's some Trauma that you'd like, man. I know you've tried some shit, but I feel like there is some out there that you would really dig, especially some of those movies they just distributed, because they didn't actually make all the movies that are under the Trauma
Right.
label. And sort of opposite of Full Moon, like Full Moon distributes movies sometimes, but most of it's like clearly European stuff that they didn't do. Trauma distributes a lot of independent movies, like a lot more than Full Moon did.
Yeah.
So there's a vast library of stuff that they actually didn't make. But just out of curiosity, I feel like I've asked you before, what are some Trauma films that you've seen?
I mean, I've hit the big ones. I've watched the Toxic Avenger movies. I've watched the Nukem High, the Sergeant Kabuki Man. Of course, Cannibal the Musical.
That's classic.
I'm sure there's a few. Terra Firma. I'm sure there's a few more in there, but those are the ones that come to mind.
What was your favorite of the stuff you'd seen?
Mm.
You didn't even like Cannibal the Musical, bro?
I didn't mind that one because I mean, it was
I love that movie.
The South Park guys
Song.
getting their stuff, but it just if I had to pick a favorite, it would be that one. But they're just, I don't know. I've tried. I'll try again, but just
I'll pepper in some stuff that I think you'll like based on your other tastes from their distribution catalog. Because if you've seen all that stuff, you basically got the idea what the Trauma flavor is. You might like Toxic Avenger. Well, actually, I think you said you saw that, so strike that. The first one's a classic, but the other ones I can take or leave. I do like part 4, but I actually kind of like all of them to a point, but I don't know. Yeah, you basically have the idea then of the Trauma flavor. So it sounds like you're a distribution catalog boy. And most of that stuff is shit that has been distributed by other people now. Like Killer Nerd that I just bought from Makeflix used to be under Trauma for a bit. Night Beast, that's how I found out about Night Beast, was through Trauma. Yeah, I mean, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things is a Trauma movie. The Children is a Trauma movie, technically, because they distributed it at some point. Lots of them, man. Luther the Geek, I think you'd really like. Yeah, there's some cool stuff out there. I think Clown Camp Massacre was a Trauma movie for a minute.
definitely try
one
that
that's
one.
super fucking fun is Looney in the Woods. We are covering Looney in the Woods on this show one of these days. It is fucking hysterical, dude. And it's made in like England, so it has nothing to do with Trauma other than that they distributed a limited edition VHS of it for a bit, I think.
Right.
But they're a good company to follow just for stuff like that. And they still do shit like that where they distribute random indie movies. So,
Well, definitely have to cover some of that in here. I mean, I like Class of Nukem High. I'm not a huge fan of Trauma, but I do have my things I like out of them.
It's a mixed bag for me. Like I was telling Cody in the chat, it's kind of one of those things where if you got into it as a teenager and developed a taste for it, you probably still like more of it, but there's still a lot of it I find kind of cringe nowadays. I'm in the same boat as Chris, I guess, where it's like you sort of grow out of a lot of it. There's certain ones that I have a lot of nostalgia for that I still like just because of that, and there are little bits in it that I find funny or you know, kind of heartwarming, like Lemmy and fucking Toxic Avenger 4. But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's a mixed bag. It's not like Full Moon where I still sort of as a rule like most of the stuff, you know. But that's what we got coming up. We also are going to be having our interview with Joseph Fogley hopefully tomorrow, and we are going to be doing our first Christmas discussion for Santa with Muscles, which was Brandon's choice. So we've got that shit coming up in the very near future, as well as whatever bonus stuff we end up plugging in along the way, and our Schlock Talks. Who knows what's going to happen during those. So Monday show continuing on as usual, and we've got several events planned for you guys in the near future. Hopefully you had fun tonight with Manos. I had quite a time myself. I think I enjoyed it quite a bit. Hopefully you guys did too. This is a movie that we are definitely going to be following up with that sequel in the future. So, you know, stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for whatever comes next. Cheers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next time.